Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about the movie Asteroid City. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. Well, Asteroid City is Wes Anderson's new movie. It's set in 1955. It's about a group of kids who are on a stargazing trip who encounter aliens. As far as what I liked about the movie, overall the cast was great. I think my standout, probably favorite performer was Jeffrey Wright as the general. I just really liked the way that he kind of gave his speech and kind of talked about his life and everything. I thought that was a great moment. Adrien Brody's always good. Scarlett Johansson I thought was great as this like 1950s starlet, totally believable. I'm a huge Jason Schwartzman fan. I loved Dead Like Me, or Bored to Death. So anytime I see him, I'm always stoked. Maya Hawke's always good. Tom Hanks, great, of course. Rupert Friend as the cowboy was great. Liev Schreiber, Sophia Lillis from Stranger Things as well. Matt Dillon shows up here briefly. We got Steve Carell, Tilda Swinton. All great, all great performers, and all did a great job in this. I think my favorite character was probably Ricky Chau, who was played by Ethan Josh Lee. I just love the way that he like didn't want to take anything from the government and was just like, no, I'm he like went out and told his friends and everything. It was like so just against being told what to do. Love it, great character. I really love the opening credits sequence. They shot it. It's shot in like a classic 1950s movie way, where you see all the credits. They're listing, not just the main actors and the, director and casting and writer and all that. They've also got just pretty much the entire cast listed in the beginning, which is what they used to do with movies. And of course, Wes Anderson has a very distinctive style. He always does these very particular color palettes in all of his movies. They're usually kind of a lot of neutrals and then some kind of light pastel colors and stuff. This one, you can see they've got the blue and the yellow in there. It just looks really cool. They've got this kind of train going through, and honestly, everything has this almost like oversaturated kind of look to it, which makes it look somewhat fake. And even watching it, I'm going like, I can't tell. Is that a real train? Is that a CGI train? Is that a miniature? Like, I think it was a miniature, but I'm honestly not really sure. And so I appreciated that. The entire kind of look of the movie and the way everything kind of looked hyper realistic, but also kind of like a cartoon in a way. It was very much like a 1950s, like a Looney Tunes kind of vibe to a lot of this. And I really appreciated that. Cinematography is great, always good in Wes Anderson's movies, just very visually stunning and great to look at. I really liked the music in this. It was done by Alexandre Desplat. I don't know if I said that right. I don't speak French, but he's done a lot of Wes Anderson's movies, Isle of Dogs, Grand Budapest Hotel, among others. I did Shape of Water and some other stuff as well. I like the humor in this. Wes Anderson has a very weird sense of humor. It's very subtle and kind of absurd. But a couple that stuck out to me was like the gasoline lighter part where he's trying to light his pipe, and then he just leans over and the guy fills it with gas, and you're like, well, that's not how that works. I mean, maybe it is. Honestly, I don't know. I guess maybe that would work. Yeah. Either way, kind of a funny joke. I like the scene with the car where Matt Dillon's like, oh, well, seen this twice before. One time, car exploded. The other time, it was fine. So he goes to put it in, and you got the first problem. It's fine, and then car just explodes. So yeah, that was great. I loved that. I loved all the stuff with the kids. There's these little girls who were all like triplets. And at some point, Tom Hanks is like, hey, where's my little princess? And she's like, I'm not a princess. I'm a witch. Then the other one was like, I'm a zombie. And the other one was like, I got my head chopped off. And like, I just love kids that are like very macabre and weird. It's always funny to me. I know some kids like that in real life, so it reminded me of them. So that was great. The dialogue is always good in Wes Anderson's movies. Again, there is this weird sort of way that people deliver their stuff, a very sort of disaffected kind of way of delivering it, a very matter of fact kind of cadence, with the exception of Jeffrey Rush, who I think did kind of get to emote a little bit more. But I do like it and I appreciate it, but it's also kind of weird. It's like watching people on the spectrum interact, or people who aren't human interact, because they all have this very like staccato, very similar way of talking. And it's almost like a David Mamet thing, or like a Aaron Sorkin kind of does it thing too, where everyone kind of talks the same. And I dig it. It's stylized, not exactly realistic, but it's still cool and it's fun. Set design was amazing. Throughout this, they were building the bluffs and the background and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, they did a great job of mixing miniatures and practical stuff, and maybe some CG, maybe not. I honestly couldn't tell. But I really appreciate it. I really liked all the signs throughout, the signage and the font and the typeface they used, because it was just perfect for that mid-50s kind of look, and it really just gave the movie a sort of look of authenticity that I really appreciated. And overall, I think the story was interesting. You know, the idea of these very smart kids in the 1950s dealing with stuff, and all the stuff with the smart kids I liked as well. Just the way that they had these crazy inventions that don't really make any logical sense on how they work. Like, I have no idea how that kid was supposed to be projecting stuff onto the moon or whatever, but also just the way they had to play that game, and they had to make it extra complicated because not only were they coming with fairly obscure people, but also then they're like, well, let's go backward and let's like do other things to make this more difficult because, you know, they were all so smart. I love that. I always like precocious kids, smart kids. It's always fun to watch them interact, even though sometimes it doesn't seem that realistic, but again, it's stylized. It's part of the movie. That's fine. As far as what I disliked about the movie, though, cast overall great. I'm a big fan of all the actors. The only people whose performances for me weren't amazing is Edward Norton, who I'm a big Edward Norton fan. I think he's great. Primal Fear, great movie. American History X, he's good in everything. But in this, I think it's just his Southern accent was a little, didn't quite work for me. And I don't even know, he might be from the South. I was going to look it up and I forgot. But yeah, just when he's doing it, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not loving this whole fake Southern accent thing you got going here, Ed Norton. And then Bryan Cranston, again, huge Bryan Cranston fan. Breaking Bad's amazing. Malcolm in the Middle is great. I haven't watched his new show, but I hear it's good. Seems like a nice guy, talented performer. He's kind of playing like a Rod Serling type character. Now maybe there's a different character they're going for here, but as I see it, I'm like, oh, that's Rod Serling. Black and white, the guy's talking to the camera. I know a lot of other people did that in the 50s, but to me, I'm just like, okay, he's doing Rod Serling. And it's fine. He's not exactly doing a Rod Serling impression. He's doing a type of guy like that who did that kind of stuff in the 50s. And it's not bad, but I guess maybe I just wanted him to do a Rod Serling impression, or maybe I wanted someone a little bit more like that. And again, it's not terrible, but I think the other issue is too, I didn't really love that whole framing device. There's this whole thing going on where there's the movie itself, which is basically a play. And then so you're seeing them working on and writing the play, but then also casting the play. So it's kind of like a movie within a movie kind of thing. And then at some point, he goes out and sees Margot Robbie, who was in the play, which is also the movie, I think. But then her scenes got cut, so now she's in a different play, and all that stuff. Fine, I didn't hate it, but I don't know that it was necessary. And I guess I don't know why they did it. My initial thought was they did it because they were concerned that the audience wouldn't be able to understand the absurdity. And so they kind of did it to help explain that. But a friend of mine kind of said something more along the lines of it, actually just the movie itself being about the nature of creation and making stuff. And so, yeah, maybe both. But for me, it wasn't terrible, but I almost feel like I would have rather just had the movie itself, just had this weird kind of absurd movie and not really needed to explain it as much. I liked Maya Hawke in this as the teacher, but she did seem a little young to me. And I think it's just because I'm used to seeing her on Stranger Things, where she was playing like a high school student or in college student, I think. And so now seeing her playing a teacher, just like, and she is old enough. She was born in 98. So she's like 24, 25 years old. But then also having Rupert Friend as her somewhat romantic interest, a little weird because he was born in 81. So he's like 41, 42. So yeah, a good 17-year age difference between them. And I was just like, just watching going like, well, he's too old for her. That's weird. And they're all adults, they can do whatever they want. But, you know, that being said, I thought he was great, though. I really liked him as the cowboy. Other than that, there's this Roadrunner going through, and I did not like the Roadrunner. The whole time I was just going like, man, that CGI Roadrunner looks terrible. And then we get to the end of the movie, and they're playing the song, the Roadrunner's doing a dance, and they actually, it was either in the movie itself or I watched a behind the scenes thing, but it's not a CGI Roadrunner. It's Wes Anderson just sitting there doing like a puppet thing. And so once I realized it was actually a puppet, I liked it a lot better. But I think there was something a little just, it looked goofy to me, and what they're going for, and it works in this movie. You can kind of do stuff like that. But yeah, just my initial thought was just like, oh, wow, that CGI looks terrible on that. And then I realized, no, it's not CGI. It's just an actual Roadrunner puppet. Other than that, movie is directed by Wes Anderson. He's done a bunch of movies. Bottle Rocket was his first. Rushmore was the big one that got him famous with Bill Murray. Yeah, Moonrise Kingdom, French Dispatch, Darjeeling Limited, all that stuff. It was written by Wes Anderson and Roman Coppola, who he writes with a lot. Roman Coppola also wrote the French Dispatch and Moonrise Kingdom. He's also a son, I believe, of Francis Ford Coppola, a relative of some sort. So is Jason Schwartzman, so is Nicolas Cage. Half of Hollywood is related to the Coppolas. But yeah, that was good. There's a lot of cameos in here as well. Bob Balaban shows up. Fisher Stevens, which was funny to see him in here. I'm mostly used to seeing him, or I know him from Short Circuit. He played the Indian guy, and he's not Indian. Tony Revolori shows up. He was in some of Wes Anderson's other movies. Jeff Goldblum briefly is in here as the alien, which is funny. Willem Dafoe shows up. Margot Robbie, again, just very briefly. Show her picture. I'm like, is that Margot Robbie? And then she does show up later. That's cool. And even Rita Wilson had a little cameo in here as Miss Weatherford, who is, of course, Tom Hanks' real-life wife. But despite all those cameos and all these actors, there's no Bill Murray in this. And this is the first Wes Anderson movie since Bottle Rocket to not have Bill Murray in this. He was originally supposed to play Steve Carell's role, which is funny to me because I almost assumed it would be Tom Hanks' role. But I can definitely see him playing Steve Carell's role. And allegedly, the reason he wasn't in the movie was because of COVID or scheduling, I think, and not because of his behavior on the Aziz Ansari movie that's run into. Basically, Bill Murray hasn't worked since that I'm aware of. So, yeah, but Wes Anderson says it had nothing to do with that, and he will work with him again in the future. So, I don't know. We'll see. That being said, I like Steve Carell, but I think there was part of me that's going like, they just imagine what it would be like with Bill Murray. And I mean, Steve Carell's great. Nothing against him, but, you know. They briefly play the Slim Whitman Indian Love Call off screen, which is funny because that was the song in Mars Attacks that caused the aliens to explode. The movie was filmed in Spain, which really blew me away. I assumed it was filmed in the American Northwest or Southwest, but no, they filmed it in Spain. I think they wanted to film it somewhere else first. I forget where. Couldn't do it for whatever reason. They ended up filming it in Spain. It looks great, though. Did a good job, and they had a big open area to do whatever they wanted with, so it makes sense. But yeah, would not have guessed Spain for that at all. I really appreciated the sort of mixed media, the different types they used. There may not be any CGI in this. If there is, it's probably pretty minimal. But I think they also used miniatures. There's some stop motion in there, and there's like matte paintings and stuff like that. So I really appreciate the way they mixed them all together, and it kind of worked for this really interesting kind of pastiche. I like just some other little things too, like the kid had a number 2 pencil with a pen clip on it. Now maybe that is just a pencil they make or some kind of a mechanical pencil, but I think they just took a number 2 pencil and cut off a pen thing and put it on there. I just like that, just like weird little stuff like that. I also noticed that there's that car scene where, you know, Matt Dillon's like, oh, you gotta screw this thing on your car, and it's not a real car part. It vaguely looks kind of like a radiator drain cock or something, maybe, but it's something they made up for the movie. And I appreciated that A, just had a cool design. It kind of had like a bar that you spun by hand. And then B, when the alien came down off the ship, the little ladder, the bottom rung looked a lot like that part that was in the car. So I think they did that unintentionally. I appreciated that. I thought that was interesting. Movie has a $25 million budget. It's made about 17 million so far. I think it had 9 million this weekend. So that's like a record for Wes Anderson, I guess. I didn't look too much into it, but that's what I saw something saying. Yeah, I assumed his movie's made a little bit more than that. But of course, yeah, no one's trying to make a bunch of money off Wes Anderson. They only spent 25 million, which is relatively low budget. It probably only needs to make about 50 million or so, maybe a little more to make money. And of course, they're not really looking to make money with this. This is more of a prestige kind of, you know, Oscar kind of thing. Rotten Tomatoes on this, critics are at 76% and audience is at 61%. So most people are liking it. It's generally approved, I suppose, but I can definitely see why critics would like this more than audiences, because there is a lot of like inside baseball, kind of seeing how the sausage is made type stuff that critics appreciate more than casual moviegoers, I think. But as far as my score on this one, I thought it was good. I really liked it. It was maybe a little slow and maybe a little too cute. And like I said, I really don't know if I needed the framing device. I feel like I would have liked the movie better if it was just straightforward movie and just let it be absurd and don't bother explaining it. But that being said, overall, fairly good. I really liked it. I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.